Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. 3 days in a row. Yes, welcome back. And by the title of today's video, today I'm talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm talking about the original by Tobe Hooper. I think I have his name over there. I'm sure that you can also guess by the title of this video. I definitely have my criticisms about this movie, okay? I don't know if this is necessarily going to be a review, but I just want to talk about this movie for a minute. Now, true story, starring me. I did not see this movie until like a month ago. I think it was like a month. I watched this movie for the first time recently. Similar, I know I just talked about Signs, and that movie was in the same boat. Once again, I felt like the perception, the word of mouth surrounding this movie was not my experience. Now, I need to preface, because I felt like I was very negative in my Signs video. I actually like Signs, and I actually do very much like this movie as well. I think that the reputation that it does have has some validity to it. It is very influential for the slasher and horror genre. It has very strong visuals. I just feel like it doesn't fully live up to the hype that it gets. I personally feel that this movie is a lot of style and not a lot of substance. My biggest criticism with the movie is that it doesn't really have a plot in my mind, okay? It's a lot of style and not a lot of substance. We followed these 5 teens or young adults on their trip. Everybody, I'm sure, knows the story. Or they're looking for some relative's old factory, and that's it. Nothing happens with these characters. Sally is the final girl in this movie, and she doesn't have any plot. I don't even think she talks for like half the movie. A lot of the other characters, especially Franklin, talks the most out of these human characters, out of the victims. Then they just get picked off. In contrast with how poor and ill-constructed our group of bodies, I'm gonna just call them the group of bodies are. The family, on the other hand, I think is very strong. There's not any plot happening. Like, they're kind of just meandering around. Now, I think the plot really kicks into gear when they go to the house. And this is a very strong element, in my opinion. I think Franklin can't go up the stairs. They're all going up into the house that they are assuming is their relatives. And Franklin is alone, and he's wheeling his wheelchair, which, by the way, Franklin is in a wheelchair. And the way that this movie just like doesn't give a shit about him. I am for more representation of all kinds in movies. To have the character be in a wheelchair, love that. But they treat him like shit. They treat him like he's a nuisance the whole time. That is the main plot. If you want me to be really honest with you, there is no interactions except that 2 or maybe there's like a couple in this group of teens or whatever. But the only other thing that they do, they all shit on Franklin. They basically think that he's just a waste of time, and they make him feel like shit. The only emotional moments that these characters have is Franklin confessing to his sister Sally that he shouldn't have come, and she's just like, oh, we're just tired, like whatever. And then 10 seconds later, she's complaining about fucking pushing him. They treat this character in the wheelchair like garbage, mama. It's so bad. Anyway, I digress. In the middle of the movie, it does start to pick up, and there is good tense scenes with Franklin because he is in the wheelchair and he's isolated at the bottom of this abandoned house, and that has some good tension to it. Then we slowly are finally starting to get picked off when they go to the family's house. This is where the movie really starts to shine. Leatherface is a very menacing killer. He does all of the killing pretty much. And that was very effective for me. It wasn't anything too crazy. I will say that the kills themselves are very lackluster. I don't think that they have a big impact. And I think that I can attest to, similar to what I've said before, a more desensitized view that I have of horror and of the horror genre. For the time, I'm sure that it was a gag in 1974. I will say as well, the imagery in general, the kills themselves aren't gruesome, but the imagery in this movie is very effective. One of the girls, I don't even remember her name, not the other girl aside from Sally, runs into the living room of the family's house, and it is like covered in bones, and there's like a whole bone couch, and it's just like decomposed human and animals and feathers, and that was very grotesque and very effective. Then they're in the kitchen with Leatherface, and there's meat hooks, and they watch. The most gruesome kill, in my opinion, is when she's put on a hook and then Leatherface like cuts the guy open, but you don't see him cut him open, but it's like it's happening like right below the screen. That was great. Like I said, the family scenes and when they're in the house, it really shines. I think it just takes the movie a bit too long to get to like the juicy bits. There's a lot of exposition and build up put on these characters, and there isn't anything happening in those scenes. They're literally just driving around doing nothing. There's no tension, there's no dread, nothing is building in those initial moments, and we don't care about the characters. Sally, this is going to be a controversial statement, but Sally is one of the weakest, worst final girls in horror, in my opinion. She doesn't hold a candle to Sidney Prescott, to Laurie Strode, to the girl, I'm blanking on her name in Nightmare on Elm Street. She doesn't hold a candle to them because we don't know anything about her. And in all honesty, all she does is just run around and then get trapped and then jump in the back of a car and drive away. She's the first, and I'll give you that. But she is the weakest of the final girls. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is attributed a lot of the tropes that we do see, like the final girl, like killers being this menacing force and chasing after, and that there's a chase scene where it's like 10 minutes, it felt like, and Leatherface and Sally are sprinting. That was amazing to me. I feel like we need more of that in horror movies, because a lot of the killers are very walking and I'm taking my time. No, Leatherface was sprinting with his little chainsaw and chasing after her. Loved that. I loved the moments when it really delved into what makes it the staple of the slasher genre. The only significant semi-plot point that is carried over from the exposition of the movie into the more climaxy moments is when Sally escapes to the gas station and she runs into the cook and is trying to be like, please help me. And at first he's very calming and is like, okay, I'll help you. And then he turns on her and captures her and takes her back to the house. Once we get back to the house with Sally, the movie starts to fall flat once again for me. Like I mentioned with the group scenes with our victims, the group scenes with the family when they're at dinner aren't as strong, looking at it from my first time view in 2024, because they aren't doing much. I think that their internal fighting is interesting, and I think that they have a fatal flaw of trying to make Grandpa kill Sally, and then Sally ends up getting away and surviving. It's kind of a lot of Sally screaming, and the climax, no, I'm sorry. This movie does not have a good climax. I think that the dinner scene is effective at first because it is gross imagery and a lot of the wearing of the skin and everything is nasty and they're trying to feed her human meat. Like, you know, it's a lot of the layers to the climax are creepy, but it gets old very quickly. Sally is just screaming and she's tied up and it's not effective. I don't want to turn anybody away from watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you have not seen it by now, or you're new into horror, I definitely think it's required viewing, like many other movies that are from the 70s, 80s, even before. I will say, adjust your expectations. And maybe that is what I should call these new videos that I'm making. Adjust your expectations. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is at its best when Leatherface is killing everybody. When Leatherface is in control of the movie, that is when Texas Chainsaw Massacre shines. And I think that is where the legacy of this movie really is strong and really can stand the test of time. I think it is very influential, and the tropes and the ideas it introduced and can still hold in the horror genre is undoubtable. You always are going to look back at this movie and know what came from it, what succeeded, and really what people were able to latch on to. I just think that it is far from a perfect movie, and it's very flawed. But that's it. There's really not a lot that in this movie except for the kills and the family. It's good. Like I said, don't get it twisted. I did enjoy my time with it, and I very much appreciate watching it. I don't know how much I would go back to this movie, but thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what you think of it. And I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.